I'm going to show you how to turn this into this. Today I'm going to give you some terrific ideas on how to make some easy dividers. And this is a collaboration with Scrapcraftastic, Rachel at Scrapcraftastic. Today we are both decking out our planners for Halloween. So if you love videos like this, make sure that you check out Rachel's channel as well. That's Scrapcraftastic, and a link will be above and below in the description as well. And also make sure you subscribe and also hit that notification button if you're interested in videos just like this, so that you'll be notified when more content comes out. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so the first thing that I like to do is to get out all of the items that I need to finish this project, so we can go through this kind of in assembly line fashion. So the only thing that I didn't pull out is my routine card list, but I'll print that out a little bit down the road. So I'm going to be using paper from the Haunted Hollow paper pad that I got from Tuesday Mornings, and I really love the colors in this paper pad. And one reason why I selected these particular pages is because it doesn't have any monsters on it, and it looks very vintagey looking, and I really like that. It has a grown-up feel to it. And I'm going to even make it have a more vintagey feel as well, so stick with me and you will actually see. I would love to know in the comments, are you a monster fan? I'm a sci-fi fan, but I don't know if I want monsters in my planner. So I already cut everything out. I did that off camera, and I cut my dividers with my Cricut machine, and so it is very nice to have that machine. It made it a very fast process. And if you wanted to cut it yourself, it's just a very simple shape. It's just a rectangle, and if you wanted the tabs on there, you can just put a little circle on there and then cut it out with your scissors. So the next thing I did was take out my paper cutter, and I took out another piece of paper from that paper pad, and these are just kind of like some little cards, and I figured I cut too much because I cut that whole page down, but I could actually use these in a different project because they don't look Halloween-y at all. So I went ahead and did that. Now I have these special scissors from Fiskars, and the edges are called a double decky, so not to be mistaken with double decker, but double decky, and they have these little ridges on here that make the paper look like it's torn, and I love that effect about this. So I cut all of the little cards out this way, and I even kept the cards that looked like a half card where it kind of went off the paper because I figured I could use those as well. So I went through each one, and again, I know I probably cut too many, but it was okay because I'll be using those in another project. So the next part of this process, I'm going to go through the cards and kind of separate things just so it'll make it easier when I get ready to assemble the dividers. And now I'm taking out some cardstock, and I got this book from Walmart, and it just has some simple colors in it, but I wanted to incorporate some green in here because for some reason I really equate green as one of the colors for Halloween. So I like the green and the black and the orange all together, so I wanted to incorporate that also. Now this is something different that I don't normally do when I do my dividers, and that is stamping. So I decided to do some stamping. I had this interesting bat stamp, and I also had another stamp which is a pumpkin, and I had some other stamps in that little bowl on the left that I got from the thrift store. For some reason lately, I've been hitting pay dirt when it comes to finding stamps at the thrift stores and Goodwill. So I've made sure to pick those up. And yes, there are still tags on those on those actual stamps because I haven't had a chance to take them off yet. But I love the way this came out, and this was kind of an experiment. I hadn't tried the orange on top of the green, but you can't really see it, but it has like this really shimmery kind of look to it. Now, one tip I like to give you, something that I've learned, is that when you are stamping things, you want to like hold down and press your stamp down so that the paper has a chance to actually kind of grab that ink. So it took me a moment for each stamping because I was doing that. And since I had, like these pieces of paper and they had already been used a little bit, I decided to just stamp away and use up the whole green piece and also the whole black piece. And of course, I went overboard with the stamps, but it is what it is. I was having fun. I also was actually watching The Outer Limits. I don't know if you all are sci-fi fans, you may know, but probably dating myself. I think it was a 90s TV show, and it's all sci-fi, so it was kind of like the perfect TV watching type of thing while I was doing this particular project. Now, I did clean all the stamps up before I put them away, or else they just would have been sitting here all night with ink on them. And then the first thing I did with the stamps is I just roughly cut things out before I started really digging in and cutting things. So next I'm going to take my precision scissors that I got from Cricut, and I'm going to do the fussy cutting. So you can see each of the pieces is really cut very intricately because again, I used the Fiskars Decky edging scissors to give it that ripped look also on most of these. So I finally got down to the last little piece here, and you can see me cutting it with the Cricut precision scissors. I love those scissors, and I'll leave a link below if this is something that you're interested in. So next I'm laying everything out, all of the dividers, just to make sure I have them all, and then I'm going to start assembling each one. Now, I always say that I like for my crafting to be fun and I don't want it to be a job. And so I didn't really think too much into how I place things. I just wanted to have all the elements on each one of the dividers. And so that's exactly what I did. I just put each one of them down really quickly so I could move on to the next step. You'll also see that I use those half pieces of cards at the top of some of the dividers, and it actually looks like a little bit of a page note or a post-it note. And then I took out one more card, which is going to act as my dashboard in the front. So now I took out my Recollections double stick tape. I had lots of people ask me, oh, what is that black and white thing? It's just a tape runner, a really huge one, and I'm using that. Now as I was putting this down, I was thinking, I would like this to have a more vintage feel to it. So I got out my Tim Holtz vintage photo ink, and then I got this little, I don't know what this is called, my little smudger thing, and I began attempting to do the edges, and I was doing kind of a horrible job at this, and it was taking me quite a long time to kind of go through this. On this one, I couldn't even see where I was actually putting it down. So what I do end up doing is taking out my mat. Now you'll see the mat in a moment, and I actually made the mat. Now I know you'll see people with the Tim Holtz mats where they paint and they glue and things, and it just protects your surface. Well, the one that I have, I actually made it myself, and I just use freezer paper. So not wax paper, but freezer paper. I took some regular paper bag, it's underneath it, and I glued some freezer paper on top with the waxy side up, and it is perfect. I can use my heat gun and everything on it, and it works. So that's another tip for you right there. Sometimes DIY projects do work. They work out well, and they're not that mammy made. So next I took out my corner chomper because I always say when you cut those corners, it gives your project a more finished look. So I just went around each one, and for those pieces that I couldn't get with a corner chomper, I used my Cricut precision scissors on those. And I really love those scissors because you can really get into the grooves and the nooks and the crannies with the scissors. So they work out just perfectly. And also made sure I chomped the corners for my routine cards as well, because I want those to have a finished look also. So the next part in this process is I'm going to start cutting my list for my routine cards, and I just keep a running list in my page documents, and that way I don't have to reinvent the wheel every month when I actually do my dividers and my setup for my planner, and it works out perfectly. The only thing I have to do is print it and then cut them out. Now I'm not going to round the corners on these particular pages. I will say that the weight of the paper that I use is 32-pound paper, and that's because I still wanted them to be sturdy and be durable because I flip through my planner pages a lot. And I believe regular pound paper is 20-pound paper. It works too. If that's all you got, then I say use what you got. So the next thing that I'm doing is I am putting out the routine cards, and they came out so beautiful. And this would be like a really good project with the kids. You can get some cardstock, you can cut them down to like playing card size, get your crayons, your markers, whatever out, and they can decorate those cards. The kids will love playing with those. So now I'm just taking my list, and I'm going to put my list all throughout on all of the routine cards that I've made. And then I'm going to adhere them with some double stick tape. So again, I'm taking my tape runner out, and I'm just adhering each one to it. And you don't need like a lot of tape for this because the paper itself is pretty sturdy. Next in the process, I am preparing for lamination. So I got some laminating sheets out, and I used the Scotch brand lamination sheets, and I always like to tell people the best place to get your lamination sheets is going to be on Amazon. I haven't found any place in town, any of the box stores, Walmart, anything that sells the lamination sheets for what you'll get on Amazon. So I put 2 dividers into each lamination sheet. And then I had one divider that only had, one lamination sheet that had one divider in it. But once I cut the excess off, I always keep the extra one if it's big enough, that extra piece that's left over. So that's what I did. So now I'm running it through the laminator, and I always recommend that while your lamination is warm, once you take it out, that you put it under something heavy, and then it will lay flat. And that always works for me. So now I am going to actually cut off the excess here, because we don't want all that excess lamination. There's nothing we can do with that. So I'm going to cut all the excess off. Now when you are cutting the excess off, you want to make sure that you don't cut too close to the edge, because this is lamination, and if you cut too close, then it's going to open up that pocket. Now I've tested where I need to cut mine, so you'll have to test yours as well on your cutting board, or if you're using your scissors, you just want to make sure that you are extra careful and that you don't cut through the lamination. And if you cut your dividers with your tabs on it, just like I did, then you want to make sure that you don't cut your tabs off either. Now, I have cut my pocket open before, but I've never cut a tab off, and I don't intend to do that now. Now, one thing that I didn't do and I kind of overlooked was that I needed a few little extra cards to go in the front pockets of the planner. So I just went back in and I used some of the scraps from when I cut the dividers, as you can see, and I used those scraps to get those extra pieces. But even the small pieces of cardstock, I never throw away. Nothing goes to waste in this craft room. So I make sure that I keep all the extras. Now that last card, it had like a little notch on the side out, but that's okay because you won't see that once it's placed inside the pocket in the front of the planner. So now I am just smooching some of the cards that I actually cut after I did the dividers, and now I am going in and I am clipping corners again. So I had those extra pieces that still had the square corners, so I'm chomping those corners, and I'm also chomping the corners of the lamination as well, because those laminated corners, they are very sharp and they will cut you. So you don't want to get poked. You want to have fun when you open up your planner. You don't want to get poked with those edges, so you want to make sure you chomp them off. Now if you don't have a corner chomper, again, you can just use your scissors. And these are the We Are Memory Keepers corner chomper, and it is one of my favorites because it has the two sizes, so you can actually make bigger rounded corners or smaller ones. So for this particular project, I'm using the smaller corners. So next, I'm taking the We Are Memory Keepers hole punch out, and I'm going to go ahead and start punching my holes. Now I'm going to do the dashboard first. The dividers next. And then my routine cards. And I always like to check at each step in this process to make sure that all the holes are in the proper spots. And I also have the measurements that I use all the time. So your measurements might be a bit different than the ones that I use. It all depends on the size of the card. So now these are the finished cards, and these are the cards that will go in the front pocket of the planner. These are the 2 cards that will go in the secretarial pocket. And then we have our routine cards, and I love that vintage feel that they actually have. And then next, the beautiful dividers. I love how they came out, and they don't have any monsters. I would love to know, do you like the monsters for Halloween? And are you decorating your planner, or have you decorated your planner for Halloween or the fall? Now, if you love videos like this, then don't forget to subscribe below and also hit the notification button. And make sure you go over to Scrapcraftastic and visit Rachel's channel, because she'll be setting her planner up for Halloween as well. Again, there will be a link above and a link in the description to her channel. And all of these dividers and whatnots will be in the setup video that will be coming up. So with that, I'm going to say love, peace, and hair grease. From your sweet Lotus Blossom and lovable Lizzie, have a fantabulous day and enjoy life.